Hello, my name is Skylar Baker. I have a PhD in marine biology. I'm currently a postdoc research associate at the Milford Lab in Connecticut, and I will be starting a position as an assistant professor at Roger Williams University this fall, so in about a month. So my career panel talk is a little bit about my public policy experience, and I assume that if folks have questions, you can follow up during Q&A session or send me an email. So my PhD and master's experience was in research of bivalves and other invertebrates, specifically population dynamics, and more specifically, reproduction and fertilization dynamics. For my PhD, I focused predominantly on the giant sea scallop or Atlantic sea scallop. It has a lot of different names. It's a very important fishery in the United States, brings in about $500 million a year. In Maine, I think it's probably closer to 10 million, maybe less now, I'm not sure. But Maine is where I did my PhD work, so that's why I bring up that fact. But it's a very important fishery, and therefore I was really interested in policy and how that affected fisheries, or aquaculture for that matter. And I knew that there was a lot to know, but I didn't really know what that was. And I showed this GIF of from The Wizard of Oz where they pull back the curtain to find out who's behind it and who the wizard really is. And that's kind of how I felt about figuring out what was going on in the government when it came to policies. So I decided to apply to the John A. Canals Marine Policy Fellowship Program that's run by Sea Grant, which is within NOAA. And this shows you some stats from their fall 2019 advertisements. Since 1979, they've had 1,351 fellows. About 50% end up working for the federal government. They've had 934 fellows placed in federal departments and agencies, and 417 fellows placed in the US Congress. So more fellows have ended up working in the federal government, but there's quite a few that have ended up in the US Congress. So I became a 2018 Canals finalist. This is a picture of my class. About 25 of the 33 Sea Grant state programs were represented, and that includes people from the Great Lakes, both coasts, even Puerto Rico. Sorry, Puerto Rico has a Sea Grant program, but it wasn't represented in our year. We had a finalist who is from South Dakota, and so that's actually important to know that you can be at an inland school and still end up applying to a Sea Grant program if you have interest in policy related to water. This is a picture of our class, or a lot of our class anyway, and this was a really amazing group of people. That was a huge perk of doing this kind of fellowship, as I made connections with people that I hope are lifelong, and it was just so nice to meet a lot of colleagues, frankly, who care about public policy and science. So I decided that I really wanted to do a placement in the US Congress because lawmaking is really complicated, and I wanted to know how a bill at the beginning of this map goes through all of these processes, or as much as I could learn in a year, and becomes a law. So I ended up taking a placement in the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, working for the minority staff, who worked for Ranking Member Senator Carper of Delaware. Here's a picture on the left of me and Senator Carper going out to a nature reserve in Delaware to learn more about what they were doing there. On the right here is a picture of me at one of the hearings. I would help staff them depending what the issue was. And actually one of the mentors in my office was a former Sea Grant fellow. And we got to do a lot of things. It was really amazing getting to be a staffer for a year. And one of those things was we got to do congressional staff visits. And my favorite actually was at Rock Creek Park in DC. It was called The Unsung Heroes of the Night Sky, and we got to learn a lot about bats and meet them up close, and watch them fly after they were measured, weighed, and sometimes tagged. I also got to learn a lot of history, and do really interesting events like the Library of Congress Congressional Staff Scavenger Hunt. We learned a lot about this library and its resources, and I made some really amazing friends. Here's two other fellows, Jimmy and Maggie, and myself. So in short, important things I learned while I was in the Senate: bringing scientific facts and observations to local representatives only goes so far. The other part of this is proposing what they can actually do about it, because they don't always know what to do with the science. And they also really like stories. Stories and data together are really powerful. The Hill, the Congressional Hill, and the federal government in general is a large, complicated ecosystem of relationships. So how people connect and why, and the dynamics between people in their positions really does matter. And I found that on the Hill, a science degree, including even just an undergrad degree, is really, really helpful for science policy and very appreciated. And I thought they probably needed more people with science degrees on the Hill to work on science policy. So because of my policy experience and my research background, I was a really good candidate for a postdoctoral research project at the Milford Lab, which is a NOAA Northeast Fisheries Science Center lab. And our project brings together a variety of agencies, industry, and municipal or local partners. So we got to collaborate with local stakeholders on the issue of oysters taking out nitrogen from the water, which is a good thing in terms of water quality. And we collaborate with the EPA and other water quality stakeholders. And then we're also working with modelers on this project who are international and within NOAA. So we had a lot of different folks. I'm here in the red jacket again with my postdoc supervisor, Julie Rose, and our collaborators, Susan Bricker and Alhambra Cabillo. So I think it sums up my interests and my policy experience, helped me find a little bit of direction for my next job. I think of it as a Venn diagram where invertebrate biology and ecology, one of my main interests, when it overlaps with human connection and communication, I think of that as like classic science communication, which was sort of my initial skill that I brought to the Hill. And I also had a little bit of experience in the engagement with stakeholders, which in my field of shellfish, I consider that harvesters, growers, that was sort of amplified by my experience as a staffer. And then, of course, my research interests are actually like applied ecology of invertebrates, so that might be fisheries or aquaculture. And then this middle space right here that's orange, it's sort of how research management practices, policy, anything gets done. And so what's great about my new job as an assistant professor is that I feel like my new job lets me do all of these things, and that the skills I've gotten through policy, my research degree, and some of the communication and engagement experiences I had beforehand all combined to let me have this really amazing job. So if you have questions, please let me know, and I'd be